welcome to the Two and a Half Brothers podcast, where we discuss FPL views, strategy, and most importantly, our monthly league. Today's plan is to review the league, take a look at our game week 2 scores, and then our plans for game week 3 and beyond. Jake, how are we?
Yeah, it's okay. Definitely been a mixed game week so far. We'll get into that later on, but generally feeling okay. Looking forward to getting game week 2 finished and looking ahead to game week 3, having the international break, settle down a little bit, and crack on with the rest of the season.
I think Bob might be in the same boat as you with regards to scoring this week or this week so far. So, I'm sure some of your thoughts will cross over there. So we'll kick off with the league update. Gatpan recovers top spot. He has his free hit chip active. There's one more week to go, so he's only got the triple captaincy and the wild card left. In my opinion, there's no obvious candidate for triple captain. He's already trebled up on Forest defenders and Spurs, triple Liverpool and Haaland. So I imagine he'll go there for his captain. I think second in the league has Mo, but Gatpan's got a pretty sizable lead already to make up in just one game week. Second place has also used a chip. Maybe third place will use theirs, but again, that the gap that Gatpan has looks quite chunky. Do you have any thoughts on that, Jake?
Yeah, I think if there's a chip you're going to use, it's probably just going to be a triple captain. Hope for the best, and try and secure that game week. I think, like you said, if we bring up his team, massive free hit this week, big at the back, and he's absolutely smashed it. I think more returns in his back three, I suppose, than my entire team. So well done there.
Yeah, okay. Can you go to the game week prior so we can look at what players he's actually going to have, assuming he doesn't
Yeah,
wildcard? So, like I say, he's got a pretty good team. I think Liverpool face Arsenal, so he's going to be tripling up there. But apart from Bowen, that looks pretty solid.
So who would you captain if you were to triple captain out of those players next week?
I mean, the standout is Haaland, isn't it? I'm not sure I'd go for the triple up though. I mean,
Okay.
maybe I would if the gap was slightly smaller. The prizes are all the same across the top 5 spots, so there's no real benefit to using it if you think you're going to secure one of those spots. We can change that prize payout as we go through the season, but for the month of August, the top 5 spots are 20 quid. So maybe he wants to keep some powder dry.
Yeah, that's very true, actually. I almost forgot it was top five placings for our league. So I think, yeah, he's got that in the bag. Probably no need to triple captain. I think he's far enough ahead to save it for another game week.
Cool. Okay, as we mentioned at the top, most of us have had a tricky game week 2 so far. Do you want me to kick off with my highlights first?
Yeah, please do. Let's save the best till last. You can crack
Okay,
on.
so I am 41 with Gakpo and Verts to go. I'll get Anderson off of my bench just for the 2 pointer there. I actually thought he played really well. He was pretty close to DEFCON and involved throughout the match. It's partly why I like having a full bench of playing assets. You can see that Anderson picked up the DEFCON as well, although he's on my bench, and Estev the Cleany. Just a wider point, I guess, on bench points. They just don't bother me at all. I'd rather have my players that are on the bench scoring points than having 4.0, 4.5 players that don't do anything. It's just not something that's ever kind of irritated me. So the highlights for me were Pedro. He feels like a bit of he's not a differential at 50% owned, but I feel like a lot of mainstream kind of content creators and players who've played the game quite seriously don't own him. We went through all the reasons that we thought he might be a decent option at the start of the season. Um, they've kind of turned it around from their game week 1 performance, which wasn't particularly good. Obviously, Palmer was injured and might have done quite well in that game. You'd expect him to be involved if Chelsea score 5 goals. So I imagine there's going to be a little bit of a clamour for João Pedro. Um, I think it just highlights, doesn't it, the volatility early in the season. So Man City were quite poor on the weekend after a decent start, albeit against Wolves. The only real takeaway I've got is a bit more confidence in the Spurs team, and I don't own any at the moment, and I'm not sure where I'd go. So potentially some tricky questions to answer there if I do want to bring one of them in. Um, Other highlights: Cucurella got the clean. Didn't get the clean sheet. He got the assist for a small return there, and Tarkovsky clean sheet and the DefCon. He's only 5% owned. I think his price point might have put people off at the start of the season, but he looks like he's gonna do the business. Pickford saved a penalty, didn't he? And I think there were another couple of good chances um, that weren't taken. But in that same vein, I don't think Forest had to do that much defending and obviously conceded. Um, so yeah, that's probably it for my thoughts on my game week so far. The score is around the average. I think that average will go up once people's Spurs players come off the bench and that sort of thing, because Palmer didn't play. Otherwise, I think see how we go next week. I'm looking forward to the Liverpool game. Having a couple. I know I've got no Salah. My captain's gone, but I am looking forward to watching Verts and Gakpo again.
Yeah, I think overall it's pretty respectable score. And again, you've still got two left to play. I think a lot of people are on similar points, all out players, possibly Spurs defender coming off the bench, like you say. But I think it's very good overall. Pedro obviously smashing it against a very poor West Ham team. Palmer being injured, maybe he helps that and enables Pedro to be a bit more of the main man.
I mean, he started
I
with
thought,
the lap on the weekend, didn't he?
yeah, yeah, that was a very interesting pick from Maresca. I think Pedro does do better, almost behind a striker. So it'd be interesting if they do the similar setup next week after smashing West Ham.
Cool. Should we move on to your highlights, if there are any?
Or yeah, let's say lack of. Uh, so we are 18 points overall. Uh, take a minute to laugh at that. So starting with double Forest defence, Palace came out and scored nice and early, so killed that one off. Dorgu, felt quite unlucky there. I thought United were okay. Fulham were knocking towards the end, and I think the changes Amorim made weren't great. So to the detriment of Dorgu, Fulham scored, and Nori going off early as well sort of sums up that back three.
That is the nasty one, the Aitnuri. It's quite a few Frimpong to Aitnuri transfers. Obviously, I didn't know that he was going to get injured. It was more of a minutes risk kind of concern over the next month, 6 weeks or so. But yeah, if you've brought him in for Frimpong, that's super unlucky.
Yeah, so I think Nori is one to watch for next week. Um, Hopefully he does play. I'm not quite sure what's up with him. And Pep is helpful as ever. So it might be a gamble there whether he starts next week or not. I think Spurs in general against City were great anyway. Okay, onto the midfield. Palmer, as we've mentioned, didn't play, so I get 1 point Fulkrug off the bench. We'll look at that a bit later. And Mbeumo, two pointer. I thought he had an assist. Was happy to almost get one return, and then that got wiped as well. Went down as a Fulham own goal. So Yuri getting the assist for that.
Yeah, that was unlucky on the Mbeumo.
Yeah. I thought United came out the first 10, 20 minutes and looked really bright. And I was like, okay, they're going to put sort of three past Fulham here. And it just tailed off really, really quickly. They do have Burnley next week. So hopefully keep them for that. But I think there's a lot of work to do in that United team still. Kudos, three pointers, and Dewsbury Hall. I thought Everton played pretty well. And Dewsbury Hall linking up with Grealish was quite good. Just no returns from him. And then onto the front line, Watkins and Strand Larsen, two pointers again. I think both teams really lacking creativity. I do have an interesting table from the Fantasy Football Scout website. Again, no affiliation, just I thought it was quite interesting to look at.
I mean that front line is stinking, isn't it? Just by
Yes.
just watching the games. I know Fulkrug, did he have a goal ruled out for offside?
Yes,
But
again,
it's still,
yeah. Another highlight was Fulker goal getting ruled out and then getting smashed at 5-1. But up here, I've got the team XGs. Obviously, it's only for the first 2 weeks, but I still think it's quite useful to look at. As you can see at the bottom, we've got Wolves, West Ham, and Aston Villa. The three players that make up my front line for my team is not what you want to see. Sort of one XG between them.
no, that is dreadful. Um, I didn't realise it quite been that bad. I think Strand Larson got a shot off again on the weekend. I'd hoped for a little bit more. He's got Everton next, so I'll play him next week. There's also that Palmer injury to deal with. That is dreadful though.
Yeah, it's really concerning. I hope they can improve. I'd say Villa, they are a good team, and Emery is a good manager. They just seem to have lost all creativity over the summer.
Tough times. If we go back to your team,
Yeah.
so you're one of these guys that have doubled up on West Ham. You thankfully haven't doubled up on Villa. Um, I see that as a real a real issue for players that have done that. You can argue that if they've saved three transfers by next week, you can remedy quite a bit of it. Um, whether their team structure suits the transfers they'd want to make is another question. Because they're pretty cheap, aren't they? Those players might limit, apart from Watkins, but might limit where you can go and might force your hand on a wild card. So, what are your thoughts? Not necessarily around this, but your plans going forward. It might be a good place to have a look at your game week 3 team.
So looking forward to game week 3. I've got a couple options in my head so far. I think they all revolve around Palmer being injured and possibly also just not performing. The main idea is to downgrade him to either Semenyo or I was also looking at Morgan Gibbs White. Forest have really good fixtures over the next few. They do have, I think, Burnley, Sunderland, and West Ham up next. They have Arsenal in between those that could possibly bench or still play him through that. So Palmer to Gibbs White, and then get rid of Fulkrug up to Pedro, I think is a necessity.
Yeah,
The other option is Palmer to Semenyo, and again Fulkrug up to Pedro.
Semenyo has Spurs and Newcastle, I think, in the next 3, but he did play really well against Liverpool, so maybe that matters a little bit less. My City assets really struggled against that Spurs team on the weekend. I thought they're excellent. I don't know if that would deter you from Semenyo. I think he got around 14, 15 XGI last season, so he's off to a good start. I did have a quick look at Sarr from Palace. He's off the mark now, and he's got good fixtures. So he's actually got Villa and West Ham in the next 3, and Sunderland in the middle. Um, I watched him yesterday. Look really sharp. 17 expected goal involvements last season. Like I say, now he's up and running. I did have a look at the shots that they'll be losing with Eze moving on. Eze took 102 shots last season, and Sarr only took 59.
Okay.
So maybe he can look to get those numbers up. His accuracy is actually not as bad as I thought it was going to be. It's well over 50%. He's really cheap, so you'd have the money to spread around. I think he's 6.5 million. But they're the two I'd had a look at. I just don't know who I'd buy from Spurs. Sorry to hijack your team. Just that I mentioned potential Spurs transfers earlier. I don't know who I'd fancy from that attack. Probably Kudus is the only player that I'd want to bring in, and you've already got him. You're not tempted by another?
Brennan Johnson looks quite good. He's been in the goals quite a bit. Also, Richarlison has been great, but again, I think he gets subbed 70, 80 minutes. Solanke, and there's quite a bit of competition up front. In general, Spurs look really good. I think if I was to get another player in, it would be one of the defenders. Two clean sheets and two now. Looks really solid. And I think Thomas Frank's doing a great job over there.
Yeah. So if you do get the injuries to like Aït and Palmer confirmed, your bench looks pretty lightweight. Have you got one transfer or two?
I have one transfer, so I'd probably have to take a hit. I did Marmoush to Mbeumo last week, as that was the main concern. But now I think we've got a bit of a crisis. I think I'd rather get Palmer out and Fulkrug out and improve that front line and possibly play Diouf against Forest. I expect them to lose, but there's always potential for attacking returns from him. Even on the weekend, he got an assist and he's almost in that left mid spot for West Ham. I think they are just not a great team, so he'd probably be next on my list to go.
So no thoughts of an early wildcard.
Yes, it was on my mind, especially watching my team on the weekend. The only issue is we've had 2 game weeks. I still wouldn't know who I'd want to get in. I don't think there's any clear candidates. And I think I'd rather take the -4 and I can probably remedy the team a little bit. And on paper for next week, it looks a good team. It's just if, I guess, Villa and Wolves can step up their attack a little bit.
Yeah, that's tricky, isn't it? You kind of hope you're kind of betting on something that has looked quite unlikely so far. As in the turnaround from here would need to be quite remarkable. I think if you look at things like XG at a player level, I think
Mm,
that is quite noisy. I think when you look at it at a team level,
mm,
I think it irons out some of that noise. And that table you had up earlier from Scout was quite telling. Just the lack of creativity and the lack of chances they're creating.
yeah.
I agree with you. There's not really enough going on at the moment to warrant a wild card. I mentioned earlier that City have dropped off relative to week one, and Chelsea played much better. The only kind of consistent thing now, I think, is Spurs seem to have really turned the corner. You've also got some fairly big injuries, as you can see on your team there. Saka's been confirmed out for 4 weeks, and then he'll be eased back in. So that Arsenal team is going to be without him for the next month or so. I did think you could maybe see how the game week 3 goes, like you're saying, wild card over the international break. Most teams that have a low score this week actually look half decent going into game week 3. I know you've got a couple of issues there, but there's no reason that they can't perform.
Yeah, I agree. I think you look at United's home against Burnley, Spurs at home to Bournemouth. I think the only tricky fixture there is Liverpool and Arsenal, but we still see Salah perform those big fixtures, so I'm not too concerned about him. I think I will stick with the team, possibly take a -4, see how game week 3 goes, and then potentially wild card after the break.
I mean, at least if you take the -4 this month when you're not going to win the monthly league, then you take that hit going into September with hopefully a problem or two sorted out. It's obviously much less favourable to take that during a month when you're competitive.
Yeah, that's it. Take the hit now, and then reset in September. We'll say the first month doesn't count.
Cool, fair enough. Anything else, or should we grab my team?
No, I think that's it. Let's take a look at your team.
Cool. So I am already tripled up on Forest ahead of West Ham, but I've no attack. As we said earlier, I thought Anderson was tidy yesterday, just missed out on DEFCON. I feel like Palmer will be out for a period. Just speaking from personal experience, groin issues are really tricky to come back from quickly. If you're not starting a game and it pulls during the warm up, I mean that's pretty telling. I think Maresca said he'd been struggling with it for a little while. Um, so he's benched for next week at the moment. We've spoken about Spurs and potential replacements. Um, whether or not I'll make that transfer, I don't know. Like I say, Semenyo has a couple of tricky fixtures. I think Sarr might be an option for me. I didn't own him last season. I find Palace players quite tricky to to own sometimes. They tend to be a little bit streaky, but yeah, he was top of the pops last year for his price point. Really productive. Um, so yeah, captain on Haaland again. I mean, most fixtures are hopefully good for City, but I think Brighton might be a little less stubborn than Spurs. I don't really have any other captaincy options. Maybe that will always be the case when you own Haaland, but yeah. Any thoughts, Jake?
I think it looks pretty well set up. Who would you downgrade to get Sarin? Would that be from Palmer, or would you look to keep him?
Yeah, it would probably be for Palmer and release some of the cash. I'll run through my team actually, just for
Yeah,
the podcast listeners. So Sells at the back, and then power three of Murillo, Karkowski, and Cucurella. Midfield is Wirtz, Gakpo, Anderson, and Reinders. Up front is Haaland, Pedro, and Strand Larsen, with Palmer benched, Fulham's Anderson, and Estev on my bench. So a couple of bench options if we do run into any more problems. Um, so yeah, no real captaincy option away from Haaland. There's no other options really apart from Haaland. I can't go from someone like Palmer to an injured Saka, for example. I don't fancy United given their fixtures after Burnley, and that performance we saw yesterday was not very good. to be to be kind. Um, so yeah, smooth-ish sailing again for me going into game week 3, at least at the time being.
yeah. I think we'd expect to see City do a lot better against Brighton than they did at Spurs. I think historically they have done pretty well there. So I think captain Haaland's probably the only choice. I suppose Pedro, maybe another option. Saw a few Pedro captainers out there on the weekend with big 30 points. And any temptations there against Fulham?
Um, hadn't really thought of it to be honest. There is a school of thought that he might be on penalties with Palmer out. I don't actually know what his record's like off the top of my head, but the fact he's in the mix for them can't be bad. Um,
No, no. So yeah, maybe a potential option.
I mean, that is a fruity option. I tend to just leave the captaincy on my most expensive players. I don't know if I'd gamble on a City improvement. To be honest, I mean, I'm going to captain Haaland, but the drop off was so big compared to Wolves. I know the Wolves against Spurs is a very different game for City, but I was surprised at just how bad they were. They looked like they'd completely regressed to last season.
Yeah, they did look really disjointed. It's almost like they weren't sure where to play or what to do. I'd expect them to get better at Brighton, but again, we see Brighton normally set up quite well, especially at home. So maybe a small danger of a blank again. But I think Pep will probably really get into them over the weekend for next week.
So with Bob's team, pretty similar to yours, give or take. Sounds like you boys have the key decisions to make this week, whereas I've got somewhat of a clean sheet before game week 3.
Thanks. There's definitely work to do. Obviously, the Liverpool game tonight. I still have Captain Mo Salah to play, so potential for a saving grace there.
Well, on that note, if there's nothing more, enjoy the Liverpool game, and to everybody listening to the podcast, drop any questions or comments on TikTok, and obviously like and follow the podcast if you can. Jake, best of luck tonight. We'll chat again during the week.
Yeah, thanks, and thank you for tuning in, and we will see you later.
Cheers.